النجاح والتفوق بإذن الله.
Hello students, nice to meet you again in our biology program. Today we are going to talk about reproduction. Reproduction in living organisms. Importance of reproduction to organisms. Of course, to secure their existence as individuals. They save the necessary energy for growth up to a certain stage. Then they begin acting for maintenance of species through reproduction, to which most of their energy and behavior become directed. So, as we said, important if reproduction is to secure its existence. Then I am going to talk about the reproductive capacity among living organisms. I mean among different living organisms. Aquatic animals or aquatic organisms produce much more progeny than their land relatives. Also, parasites produce much more progeny than organisms in order to compensate their loss. The production of primitive or short-aged organisms, progenies, is much more than higher or land-aged ones. Since the production, they provided care and protection. So, they produce care for their young and also protection. So, the production of primitive or short-aged is much more than higher, because as you see, the production that provided care, they produce care and protection to their young. Many of the extinct forms had failed to continue up till now. From these we recall the dinosaurs and other giant reptiles. They didn't continue in production. Let's talk about methods of reproduction in living organisms. These methods can be grouped into two main groups. First, I will talk about asexual reproduction. The asexual reproduction definition is a mere isolation of body part, either a spore cell or many cells or tissues, and their growth into a new organism that fully resembles the original form, which the original one from which above part has been isolated. I'm going to say the definition again. What is the meaning of asexual reproduction? It's a mere isolation of a body part, either a spore cell or many cells or tissues, and their growth into a new organism that fully resembles the original from which the above part has been isolated. Let's talk about the properties of asexual reproduction. Let's see. At any change in the environment, most the offsprings become exposed to destruction unless their parents had been adapted for that change. Also, this kind of reproduction is common in the plant kingdom. It's common in plant kingdom, but is limited to some primitive forms of the animal kingdom. And also, it depends on mitotic division of cells. I'm going to say the properties again. At any change in the environment, most of the offspring become exposed to destruction unless they could adapt, their parents could adapt with environmental change. And also this kind of reproduction is common in plant kingdom, but it is limited to some primitive forms of the animal kingdom. And as you see, it's happened by mitotic division. Let's talk about types of asexual reproduction. First kind is called binary fission. Nucleus divides by mitosis. Then the cell that represents a unicellular organism divides into two cells. Each become a new individual. Many protozoa such as amoeba, as you see, and paramecium also, as well as simple algae and also bacteria, reproduce by this type under suitable conditions. Amoeba secretes a chitinous coat around its body for protection. It usually divides within that coat several times, as you see, by repeated binary fission. This leads to numerous young amoeba that liberate from the cyst upon improvement of the surrounding conditions. As we said, this kind happen in unicellular organisms like amoeba, simple algae, and also bacteria. It happens by mitosis, like different types of asexual reproduction. And now we are going to talk about second type of asexual reproduction, which is budding. In budding, some unicellular organisms as well as some multicellular ones reproduce by budding. So, as we said before, binary fission happen in unicellular only, but budding happen in unicellular as well as some multicellular ones. As yeast, as you see, my dear student, the bud arises as a lateral projection from the original cell, while the nucleus divides mitotically into two nuclei. One of them remains in the mother cell, while the other moves towards the bud, as you see. It grows gradually and may remains connected with the mother cell. Then it separates or continue in connection with the mother cell, forming cellular colonies with other growing buds. I am going to say that again as example on unicellular organism. Yeast is example on unicellular organism. We can see a bud arises as a lateral projection from original cell, while the nucleus divides mitotically into two nuclei. One of them remains in the mother cell while the other moves toward the bud. It grows gradually and may remain connected with mother cell. Then it separates or continue in connection with the mother cell, forming cellular colonies with other growing buds. But in multicellular forms, such as sponges and hydra, they grow as a cellular projection or protrusion. As you see, from one side, you can see cellular protrusion from one side of the body due to division of interstitial cells. These cells are called interstitial cells, which form a protrusion, and their differentiation to a bud. This grows gradually to resemble the mother entirely. It usually separates to start its independent life. Sponge and the hydra reproduce also sexually beside their capacity for regeneration. So budding happen in two kinds of organisms, unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular like yeast and multicellular like sponge and hydra. And the name of cells which form protrusion is called interstitial cells. Let's move to another type of asexual reproduction, which is regeneration. It's common in many plants and some animals, such as sponge and hydra, as well as some worms and sea star. You know the other name of sea star is starfish, so you can say sea star or starfish. They are able to regenerate the lost parts of their body. Each part can grow to a new individual. We can see its capacity for regeneration. It decreases in higher animals. In some crustaceans and amphibians, it is limited to restoration of the cut part only, as you see. So it restores the cut part only in crustaceans and amphibians. But in higher vertebrates, regeneration never exceeds healing of wounds, especially those located in skin or blood vessels and also muscles. Let's see an example on regeneration. Planaria, as you see, planaria is a worm. It regenerates even if cut into several transverse pieces or two longitudinal parts. Each will grow into a new individual. Also, Hydra is able to regenerate if it is cut into several transverse pieces. And also in sea star, which feeds on the pearl muscles, tearing them, when we tear them up, we help them to reproduce. So when we tear the sea star, when we tear each arm with a piece of central disc, it can regenerate to a full starfish again within a short time. So when we cut their arms with a piece of central disc, you help them to regenerate. Other type of asexual reproduction is called sporogony. Some primitive plants reproduce by means of single cells called spores that are adapted for direct growth. A spore, as you see, formed of a cytoplasm with little amount of water. And also you can see a nucleus, and this spore is surrounded by a thick coat. When the spore matures, it liberates from the mother plant to be spread in air. It's spread in air, as you see. Its coat ruptures while it absorbs water and divides several times, of course by mitotic division, and grew to a new individual. Many fungi such as bread mold, mushroom, and some algae, and also fern plants reproduce by this method. Reproduction by spores has several advantages, such as quick propagation, also tolerance to hard condition, and also it goes to distant regions. I am going to say the advantages again of this kind of reproduction. The advantages of sporogony, as I said, it has a quick propagation, also tolerance to hard condition, and it goes to distant regions. Other type of asexual reproduction is called parthenogenesis. What is the definition of parthenogenesis? It's important. It is the ability of the egg to develop to a new individual without being fertilized by male gamete. Again, the definition of parthenogenesis is the ability of the egg to develop to a new individual without being fertilized by a male gamete. We can say, or we can consider it as sexual reproduction, since the progeny comes only from mother only. One parent, which is a mother. It occurs in a number of worms, crustaceans, and also insects, like honeybee. Honeybee is a known example where the queen produces some eggs that develop without fertilization, forming drones. So the drones come from egg without fertilization, and some others that develop after fertilization to queen and workers, according to the type of food provided later on. Once again, the honeybee is a common example on parthenogenesis. So, when the queen produces some eggs, the eggs develop without fertilization into drone only. That means male only, male honeybee. And some other that develop after fertilization to queen and also workers. They divided into workers or a queen according to type of food provided later on. Of course, drones are haploid number, any number of chromosome, but queen and workers are diploid. So queen and workers resulted from sexual reproduction, but drones come from type of asexual reproduction, which is parthenogenesis. In some other cases, the eggs may also result from a mitotic division, where it develops to a diploid number to any number of chromosomes, as we see that in aphid insect. So, in aphid insect, the insect is each cell, you can see it's to any number of chromosomes. It divide mitotically, the egg divide mitotically to give another aphid insect also to any number of chromosomes. So it results, the egg is result from mitotic division. The egg is the result in aphid insect by mitotic division. So the egg is to any number of chromosome like the aphid insect. So we talked about two kinds of parthenogenesis, and we give two main examples on parthenogenesis. First type is honeybee. The honeybee, as I said, the drone is any number of chromosome. They are result from unfertilized egg. The egg is any number of chromosome. So the egg came from meiotic division. So the drone will be any number of chromosome. But after fertilization of some eggs, they will give queen or workers, and this type will be queen or worker according to type of food. But in aphid insect, it's different. You can see the eggs may also result from mitotic division. So the egg, the egg which come from mitotic division will be also to any number chromosome, to any number of chromosome like its parent, like aphid insect which result from. So when to any number chromosome egg will grow, it will give another aphid insect similar to its mother one. Parthenogenesis has been induced artificially by egg activation, like frog and sea star, through its exposure to heat or electric shock, or irradiation, and also some salt agitation, or you can see pricking with a needle. These stimuli lead to duplication of their chromosome, that leads to duplication of the number of chromosomes, and so develop without fertilization two individuals that are totally identical with the mother by similar stimuli. And also early embryonic stages of rabbits were obtained from their eggs by artificial parthenogenesis. So we can get parthenogenesis naturally like honeybee and aphid insect, and we can get it artificially by egg activation by different methods that's happening in frog, sea star, and they got early embryonic stages of rabbits by this method only. Now I am going to talk about the last type of asexual reproduction, which is tissue culture. I'm going to talk about tissue culture. Scientists carry out experiments of tissue culture on plants and animals. They grow their tissues in a semi-natural nutrient medium and follow their different nutrition and progress till a full organism is obtained. A scientist separated a small pieces of carrot plant into conical flasks containing coconut milk, which comprises the whole plant hormones and nutrient elements. They began to grow and develop into full carrot plant later. Then the scientist separated single cells from a same plant and cultivated them by a same method and obtained a whole plant. Once again, I am going to explain the way of tissue culture. They grow their tissue, the tissue of plant or animal, in a semi-natural nutrient medium, and follow their differentiation and progress till a full organism is obtained. A scientist separated small pieces of carrot plant, as you see, into conical flasks containing coconut milk, which comprises the whole plant hormones and nutrient elements. They began to grow and develop into a full carrot plant later. He separated single cells from the same plant and cultivated them as same method and obtained a whole plant. These experiments confirmed that any somatic cell in the plant comprises the whole genetic information that later can be translated to a whole developed organism if cultivated in a proper nutrient medium containing plant hormones with certain ratio. I'm going now to talk about the importance of tissue culture, propagating rare plants, or of desirable strains, or of more resistance to diseases. So it's important in propagating rare plants, desirable strains, also more strains resistant to diseases, and also to shorten the time needed for growing desirable crops. I'm going to answer questions about this part of the chapter. Let's start. First, give reason for the following. Although reproduction is not as important as other functions, yet it has vital importance for living organisms. Why do you think reproduction is not as important as other functions, yet it has a vital importance? Because if any of the biological functions was impeded, the individual dies immediately, while the removal of genital organs from some organisms did not affect their normal life. While reproduction is vital important for the living organism for keeping of the species from extinction. I'm going to say the answer again because it's a long answer. Please concentrate with me. Because if any of the biological functions was impeded, the individual dies immediately, while the removal of genital organs from some organisms did not affect their normal life, while reproduction is vital important for living organism for keeping of the species from extinction. Next, the regeneration occurs in variable ratios. The regeneration occurs in variable ratios. Regeneration occurs in variable ratios because the capacity of regeneration is less by the development of the organism. In some animals, such as sponges and hydra, if the body is cut into several parts, each part can regenerate into a complete individual. In some crustaceans and amphibians, regeneration is restricted to regeneration their lost parts, while in higher vertebrates never exceeds the healing of wounds, especially in blood vessels, muscles, and skin. I am going to say that again, why the regeneration occurs in variable ratio. I mean it differs from living organism to another. Regeneration occurs in variable ratios because the capacity of regeneration is less by the development of the organism. In some animals, such as sponges and hydra, as you see, if the body is cut into several parts, each part can regenerate into a complete individual. So it's a kind of asexual reproduction. In some crustaceans and amphibians, it's different. The regeneration is restricted to regeneration of their lost parts only. While in higher vertebrates, as you see, my dear students, it never exceeds healing wounds, and especially in blood vessels, muscles, and skins. Amoeba and bacteria don't suffer from aging. Why do you think amoeba and bacteria don't suffer from aging? Because after the division of amoeba and bacteria with binary fission into young cells, the parental cell disappears, where each young cell starts to feed and grow, to repeat this kind of fission in suitable conditions. So amoeba and bacteria cannot suffer from aging. Once again, because after the division of amoeba and bacteria with binary fission into young cells, the parental cell disappears, where each young cell starts to feed and grow, to repeat this kind of division. in suitable conditions so amoeba and bacteria cannot suffer from aging. Thank you for good listening. I wish you enjoyed your time with us. See you next episode. Good luck and goodbye.